Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your Tuesday morning or afternoon, depending upon where you're dialing in from. While some of our registrants get logged in here, I'll go through a couple housekeeping items. So today we're going to explore how one of our customers, Rockline Industries, who's a leading JDE manufacturer, was able to modernize their JDE analytics and reporting. And today we have Cheryl Slane with us, who's going to walk us through their analytics journey and some of the lessons they learned along the way. And we will be recording the session. So if you'd like to reference it later or share it with coworkers, you'll be able to do that. And also, we're going to try to save some time at the end to ask questions. So please use the Q&A button in the Zoom control panel as you think of those, and I'll be monitoring them and present them back at the end. All right, so Cheryl, can you go to the next slide, please? Cool. So just real quickly, Preferred Strategies is an enterprise analytics provider that really operates as an extension of your data team. And we've been around since 2002. And over the past 23 years or so, we've helped many customers, including Rockline, bridge the gap between these complex corporate systems such as JD Edwards and the leading analytics and business intelligence technologies. And we've created our quick launch solution for companies who really realize that they need to replace their legacy reporting tools and move to a more modern cloud-based platform like Power BI. And so that is what Rockline was able to do, and that's what we're gonna hear today as we go through today's session. Cheryl, can you go to the next slide, please? All right. So just wanted to point out that if you're interested in Power BI and want to join some future sessions that we do, we have a workshop that we're doing with Quest on December 5th. So you can go out to our events page and sign up for that. We're also, and if you're in the construction sector, we're doing a construction analytics with Power BI session where we'll go through some common analytical use cases that we've been able to solve for there. So check those out if you're interested. And let's move on to the next slide where I will introduce Cheryl. So I guess I'll first start off by introducing myself. My name is David Kettinger, and I lead the marketing team here at Preferred. And today I'm excited to have one of our favorite customers join us, which is Cheryl Slane from Rockline. And she's really going to share her experiences and what they've gone through at Rockline over the past year and a half, I believe. This is actually a picture of Cheryl and some of our other customers who presented at this year's In Focus conference in Denver. And it was great seeing Cheryl in person. And she did such a great job presenting this content that we asked her to come back here and do an online version for everyone that couldn't attend In Focus. So happy to have her here. And with that, Cheryl, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. Let me advance the slide. So our agenda for today's session, we'll be learning a little bit more about me and my journey for Rockline, and also my business intelligence journey. And then we'll talk about our Rockline Industries and what the users are doing for their business intelligence journey, and also how this is being a little bit split from what the IS Information Services Department is doing with a BI journey. And then at the end, we'll also talk about kind of what's next for Rockline, because we're just kind of at the start, just a year and a half into our journey. We've made some progress and we have a long way to go on this journey. So at Rockline, I am the Information Services Business Manager responsible for accounting, sales and marketing, customer service, EDI, and parts of transportation within JD Edwards. Our accounting group has this tradition of always starting a meeting with a joke. So in keeping with that tradition, I would like to start with a joke. And why don't business intelligence tools ever get lost? Because they always know how to drill down. And our weekly meeting jokes are usually this bad also. But now with that out of the way, I would like to talk a little bit about where my journey began. Before I was with Rockline, I spent 19 and a half years with Faribault Foods. We were a food manufacturer of beans, pastas, soups, and formerly juice pouches. And I was part of the original team that implemented JDE XE way back when. And we actually had a successful upgrade after a really bad implementation. We had a small IT department, and there I supported accounting, which was ARAPGL, inventory or the logistics with inventory, sales order, procurement, MRP, and manufacturing, and also HR. On the technical side, I did JD Edwards development, I added security, and I worked with the scheduler. Faribault had a number of other third-party tools that integrated with JD Edwards. We used R Smart for data collection. We used Demantra for our demand planning. We used Maximo for our asset management system. We used the Oracle Content Manager to store all of our documents. And our accounting group also used Spreadsheet Server. It was here that my business intelligence journey really started. When we were using R Smart, I attended one of their user conferences, and they partnered with a company called Q4Biz to look for a business intelligence platform. Being the good employee I was, I saw, hey, this is great. We don't have anything like it. How can we bring this functionality back to Faribault Foods? But the users were just a little bit apprehensive of that, getting that visibility in the system. So it'd be a few years later when the VP of sales actually looked and said, hey, I found the same solution. I see it. It's JD Edwards data. I really like it. How fast can we implement this? And because of that, I was still in contact with the Q4Biz people, and we implemented it, and all of their instructions were actually on a mouse pad. So it was a really quick rollout for all the users. And it really gained acceptance from the sales group that started it to then the accounting group and then actually the manufacturing group, because they could all see their information in one spot with the instructions on a mouse pad. And in that time, the product started with IQ4Biz and then was rebranded as IQ4Biz and is now known as Halo BI. So from this project, I learned a lot of different things. I learned that it can't just be an IT project. You really need the business managers to support and champion whatever you're trying to pull into the whole business for displaying. I also learned that building relationships is important from the systems that we're using and also the other connections that I was starting to build. I was also liking the getting the information out in multiple formats to everybody because everybody was learning in different ways and seeing the data, they could interpret the data in different ways. So seeing it as numbers on a spreadsheet, some people could understand, but seeing some of the charts and graphs and spark lines that they could now see with the visualizations, they really liked it and they understood what the data was telling them a lot better. And the last part was they really liked being self-sufficient. They liked not having to go to IT and being put in the queue for when is my request going to be done? They could actually handle their own requests and make the changes and do the filtering and the slicing by themselves. They didn't need to always go to us. So Faribault Foods was a privately held family-owned company, and they were purchased by a company called La Costeña, which is based out of Mexico. And La Costeña merged Faribault Foods with their other instance, Arizona Canning, that was in Tucson, Arizona. With that, they migrated Faribault into their SAP instance. At that time, it was November about 2018. With SAP, I decided to leave Faribault and look for my next job opportunity. So my first job interview after that decision was with Rockline Industries. And during the interview process, I learned that they were using a lot of the same JD Edwards modules I was familiar with. They were already on JD Edwards 9.2 and we're planning on an upgrade. Surprisingly, a lot of the third-party interfaces were kind of the direct competitors to what I was using at Faribault Foods. We were using DSI for our data collection system. We were using Logility for our demand planning. We're using Hexagon for our asset management. We were using IBM's DocuShare product for document management. We had Create Forms to make all those JD Edwards forms look very pretty. And our accounting group was still using Spreadsheet Server. But here, there's one piece missing, and that was our business intelligence tool. And that's where I knew I could bring value to Rockline by helping and implementing the business intelligence tool. So Rockline is not a name that you probably are familiar with, but I'm guessing you might be familiar with our products. How many coffee drinkers do we have on the audience that brew or buy their coffees? We make those filters. How many parents do we have in the audience that have or had small children? Well, those baby wipes between the Huggies and the Pampers, the store brand ones, those were probably made by us. And during the pandemic, we had a really hard time keeping our disinfecting wipes in the warehouse. So Rockline was founded in 1976 by Ralph Rudolph in Plymouth, Wisconsin, with manufacturing just down the road in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. So for those football fans out there, Sheboygan is on Lake Michigan between the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. We are a privately held company. Ralph's son Randy is our current president and CEO, and the next generation is actively involved with the business. Like I said, we kind of started out with coffee filters and baking cups, and then we expanded into the household cleaning and disinfecting wipes, and into baby wipes and also personal care wipes. So the moist toilet tissue you all now see on the shelves too. And these products are shipped worldwide. But it's not only our customers that are worldwide. Our Rockline our footprint covers the globe as well. In Wisconsin, we have manufacturing and distribution of the coffee filters, baking cups, and wet wipes, along with our corporate offices. We also have manufacturing in Springdale, Boonville, and Russellville in Arkansas for our wet wipes, and in Montville, New Jersey is our only other coffee filter manufacturer. When I was first hired, Rockline was bringing up another facility in Morristown, Tennessee, and that's where we make our medical grade disinfecting wipes that you would find in hospitals, doctor's office, and dentist offices. And we also have a global presence with a manufacturing facility in Greenwich, England, a sales office in the Netherlands, and partnerships with companies in China and also in Italy. So across all these locations, we have over 2,400 associates that are truly 24/7. And having manufacturing and offices in all of these different time zones, it's really hard to get any type of downtime because someone's always working. Our Rockline values are renew, respect, integrity, teamwork, and excellence. And these values are incorporated into everything we do, from hiring to reviews to recognition, and are the foundations of our 3 pillars. And we believe that the thought leadership, the right product solutions, and extraordinary service is really what makes us people who make it right. So at Rockline, we recently rebranded the IT department, the information technology department, to be more holistic with the IS information services to be the IS department. As stated before, I am the IS business manager, one of 2, and I have 5 direct reports that assist in covering sales, accounting, JD Edwards, EDI, and business intelligence. And in total, the IS team is a great team of 16 people. So now let's go back to the story of our business intelligence journey. When I was onboarding, I talked to Paul Myers, who was the VP of our retail sales at the time. And he asked if his salespeople needed to be experts in Excel or if they needed to be experts in sales. The reports that his team were getting were very complex and confusing, and the data conflicted with the information from different reports and different people giving him the reports. He wanted something better. He wanted something easier to use that all of his salespeople could actually look into. In the back of my mind, I thought, this is my champion based on all my previous lessons learned with Faribault Foods. So, like in the Midwest, you see a lot of farms and silos. And as I was learning more about the business, I started seeing some of those same silos appearing. We had several BI point solutions attached to other software packages. We had Tableau in our HR system. We had our Cognos in our EAM system, our asset management system. We had Logility, which was now using Halo BI, but they wouldn't connect to our JD Edwards data. We still had the Spreadsheet Server by Insight. We had our supply chain analytics group that was using Access databases to connect directly to the JD Edwards data. In JD Edwards, we had the CSV reports. We also are an iSeries platform. So we have a product called WebQuery, which the accounting group was using for ad hoc reporting. We had the data browser. So we pulled data out of JD Edwards. And then on the side, we also had something we called IoT, which is all of our plant manufacturing equipment, gathering all the data and putting that into a platform. So the JD Edwards reporting really was mainly those CSV reports. We tried to look at OneView reports, but during the last upgrade back in 2007, the CNC team kind of lost the password and they weren't able to enable OneView reporting. So we couldn't make any OneView reports. So they said, after the next upgrade, we'll get OneView reporting running. Well, luckily, we've gotten the next upgrade. We just went live in March, so we're now on release 24. Unfortunately, we still haven't had the time to get OneView reporting up and running. So it's really looking to see where out of all these platforms, where do we really want to standardize? So like most companies, being sustainable was very important to us at Rockline. And it was because of the sustainability and the water data that we use in all of our systems determined our destination. So it was in November of 2020 that a cross-functional newsletter was sent out regarding our Safeguard Scoop, which is related to our Project Safeguard, which was a corporate quality initiative to make sure that we made safe product throughout the whole company. Craig Albert, who is our VP of Information Services, was working with the engineers and an outside consulting company to create a central database that would be the repository of all the data from the plant equipment, the control systems, and other sources. This database would be in the cloud, specifically Microsoft Azure. And the data would also be visible in Power BI. So the first system that would be populating this database was our water system. And this was the decision to standardize on one platform for business intelligence for viewing. The benefits would be as our employees would move around the company, they only need to learn one tool for that business intelligence. We could create the standardized training and have multiple resources that knew the tool rather than, hey, I need to learn this tool. They move positions. Hey, I now need to learn this tool. This would be a corporate solution that everyone could be trained on for both creating reports and then also how to view reports and navigate within those reports. So we had the start of our business intelligence project to bring all of those other data sources along with the water data to expand that repository and then create a easy, viewable platform for everybody to see all this data that we're collecting and providing. So in 2021, our business intelligence path started to split. The first path was the users. With the University of YouTube and the free version of Power BI, we had a small group of users from different departments that were starting to build their own reports and dashboards. They used the JDE CSV reports to export those data along with any created queries that they used, along with the extracted data out of their grids or data browser, and they pull that data into Power BI. And as they built those tools, they started sharing what they were doing, and they created their own internal share group. We have a Teams channel that we now use to share additional resources that they can now ask questions of other team members and help each other out between their monthly meetings where we can actually show what we're doing and helping them out with questions. So some of the pieces that our group was doing, I'll show you next with these slides. And our first person out of the starting gate to put JD Edwards data into Power BI was Derek Pitterly in our global quality group. It was coming out of an executive planning session. The question was asked on when is product released? As product is being produced and coming off of those manufacturing lines, it's being put on hold for an inspection, and the product is going, samples are going to the lab, either external or internal labs, and then they're going on hold. And then as the results are coming back, that product is released from hold. So are these lots being released within the specified numbers of days that they should be released? So Derek's first dashboard was kind of looking at the lab data, which was all spreadsheets outside of JD Edwards. And this kind of gave him the foundation of learning a little bit more about Power BI and what it can do. His next couple of dashboards the next one was the release information from JD Edwards. Here we created a CSV report that he then used to connect to Power BI. Of course, as he started working on the visualizations, that brought up a lot of questions on, okay, what's going on here? Is this correct? Leading to some process questions, leading to some data questions. And we did need to modify the report, but it started getting everyone that visibility of what everyone was seeing. So seeing the data helped define the process and showing that the perception of releasing product from the hold did not always match up with reality. This was shared with our quality group at each of the manufacturing sites. And then as people started looking at it and asking questions about it, more people wanted to see it and have access to the dashboard. The visibility, just with the seeing the data and the processes, the number of days in the release time dropped by 2 or 3 days. So we were releasing product more timely just by having the users seeing the visualizations. And this also helped by reviewing the work centers because a lot of our products run on specific work centers. So here a better estimate could be made based on this product being released on these work centers. They could actually see the average, and is it more 6 days average or more maybe 4 days average? So they can do a little bit better planning. So along with the product release was a dashboard showing the hold status by product by lot and the estimated release date. And here he was so happy when he could actually get the little fires displaying, so showing the items that were really hot. This focused the quality group to say, hey, if we don't release or view these products, these are the ones that we're going to be shorting for our customer orders. And it also helped with the customer service team because now they could actually see it and know that their product was going to be looked at so they could help service the customer better and plan for those orders to be either moved out or shipped together. So it really helped the quality group for the visibility and the prioritization, and the number of past due up here in the middle. Originally when Derek started, this number was over 500. And now, when I captured the screenshot, we're now at just 116 past due records. So the percent on time was originally answering that original question on, are we releasing the time? Are we releasing the products on time? Excuse me. So we could actually see by each of the different sites that we produce in what the average amount of days was. We could look to see if they had a good day or a bad day and how their averages were going. The executives could look at a higher level and see overall, or they could focus down on a specific site. So this visibility really started putting things together and was starting to be shared out throughout the management teams also. So Derek then took all of these other dashboards and he grew the dashboard. And this is his latest, which looks a little bit more modern. So I'm happy to see how his skills are kind of increasing and being comfortable with Power BI and making something that looks a little bit more modern, as I call it. So Derek was the first one that really had to work with the users and try to build that understanding and the training and the visibility. So it started with the quality group, but then it really expanded to the customer service group, our sales group, the executive group, because they all wanted to see how are we servicing our customers. It also helped us a little bit because we knew we could take the CSV format that Derek was looking at, and instead of doing the CSV, hey, let's also create a custom table within JD Edwards that we could populate for future enhancements on. Once we get this tool, we can pull that table into a data warehouse and then take that and have Derek build off of that rather than all the CSV reports. So Derek did have to create some training so everyone knew how to use the tool. He gained acceptance with it, and also he started documenting. So if we look back with all of these little hexagons, you see the information. So with those informations, he actually published, where's the data being gathered? How is he grabbing this? How is it being calculated? So people have the understanding. And then also, what is this data used for? What am I looking at? What do I see? So he was the first one to kind of build that whole understanding and set the foundation on how to make it easier to get all of this out for the users. But the quality group wasn't the only one to look and start creating things within Power BI. We had the supply chain analytics group that said, hey, let's grab our data from our Access databases. Let's pull the data into Power BI and start showing off some of the data. So one of their first ones was a OTIF, which is on time and in full. And here they can look at each of our customers saying, how are we doing for fulfilling their customer requirements? How many orders do they have? Are they on time? Are these orders ready? And they could start tracking those trends over a time period to say, okay, are we having one blip where we just had one bad performance for one order? Or are we trending historically upwards or downwards? And this would be a good communication tool as we work with these customers to say, hey, that one time it was just a one-time shot. Here's all our trending. Here's all our metrics. We could then start sharing some of these numbers with them and the salespeople that could then share it with the customers. So the other one that they created was for all of our customer service people. So this one, the past due orders by bill to, not a graph that I would recommend. It's very pretty in colors, but not a lot of visibility. It's actually a lot better once we do a filter based on each CSA person, and then they can actually see their customers and which orders are past due. So they do have a lot of metrics using the KPI cards across the top and along the sides. Like I said, we just completed our upgrade. So what I would like to do is take some of this information and put it back into JD Edwards by using watch lists and a composed page. I think I can get some of these pieces of information into a composed page that the CSA people can actually click on right in JD Edwards to see all of their orders directly. But this gives them nice visibility of how are my orders doing and how are my customers doing. The other one that our supply chain analytics group was looking as a custom development that we have in JD Edwards, we call the trailer schedule. This is a listing of all of our inbound and outbound trailers. And the application, the first part of the application is here on the top. And then if we scroll over, we see the additional information here across the bottom. So there's a lot of information here that's being captured. And it's really hard to kind of view or see any trend lines on this one. But we had our inbounds, we had our outbounds, we had how many dates we have, we had our order numbers related to it. So we would take this data, they extracted this data out of JD Edwards, and then they put it into a Power BI dashboard where they could then look at the inbound side. How many orders do we have within these 7 days? How many orders do we look at for the week? Like I said, we're 24/7, and our managers are usually only working those 8+ hour days. So they can actually look and take the quick snapshot of how did they perform last night? How did they perform on the other shifts? Do we need to look at our inbound? How are our outbounds doing? Do we need to shuffle people around? Here, this gave them a lot better visibility and a lot easier visibility based on each of the different branches they could look at, saying outbound, inbound, how are we doing? How are we doing for staffing and shuffling people around? But our supply chain analytics wasn't the only group within Rockline that was making their own dashboards. We also have the supply chain planning group that was looking and creating based on JD Edwards data, extracting it out and putting it into Power BI. Here, this is their demand forecasting dashboard where they're actually looking at our top 20 customers and they're looking at forecast and how those forecasts are comparing to ordered. And then they can also do some of that slicing and dicing for each of our items. How are moist toilet tissues doing? How is the disinfecting wipes doing? How are the baking cups doing? And they can see if there's any trending based on those different categorizations. And those groups weren't the only ones that were using it. We have a lot more departments that are actually building their own, extracting data out of JD Edwards, either with the reports or the connections or the queries, putting it into Power BI. Our global strategic sourcing is looking at all of our purchase orders and the purchasing spend for all of our suppliers. The inventory replenishment, we have locations, as you saw, across the globe. We move inventory, both raw materials and some finished good, between all of those locations. So how are all of those transfers being handled? Do we need to move things faster? Do we need to move things over? Do we need to shuffle some things as things are coming into the port? Are they in the port yet? So they're building some dashboards to give them visibility. We do have a person in the distribution group that is also looking at the trailer schedule. And on the side, outside of the supply chain analytics, how to build the trailer schedule into a Power BI dashboard. We also have project management, which is another custom module we created in JD Edwards for our contract group. So we are contracted by various customers to produce their product for them. And we take our hours that we associate with each of their projects, either formulation redesign or new products, and we capture those hours to certain projects. Here, they were using it to grab the data out so they can see these people were working on these projects. These projects were taking this time. So they could use some of those categorizations and see those trending better in Power BI than they can in JD Edwards. And the latest ones that Derek's currently working on is our consumer and supplier contacts, along with our pesticide registration. because our disinfecting wipes are EPA regulated. So we do have to go with the pesticide registration for multiple states. So he's now doing some other dashboards and getting some of these other pieces that are sometimes within JD Edwards, sometimes outside of JD Edwards, into one place for viewing. So now going back, we have a lot of these Rockline associates who are doing great things with all of their Powered BI dashboards. And at the same time, we knew the IS department, we had to make it better for them. We had to make it easier for them to connect Power BI to the JD Edwards data and the other data sources. So we started creating a project, and Derek was, with all of his hard work, he got the kind of the acceptance on, yes, this is great. This is a great tool to see. But even with that acceptance and the visibility, it still took several years to get us the funding to get a tool in place to make everything easier. So the first part that we had to do from an IS information systems perspective was kind of change our staffing around a little bit. I had previous BI experience from working at Faribault, but the requests would be more than I could just manage alone. We needed someone else to help out and become that primary support person for our Power BI within the IT group. So I went to a seminar when we almost first started the project, and I saw a presentation, and this graph is by McKinsey Analytics, where they kind of talked about a organizational structure. And this was very beneficial for me because I could say, hey, we are currently in the business unit. We have all of these associates within the business unit kind of building their own Power BI dashboards. They know their information. We kind of want to continue that, but we also know that we need to give them some help and some support. So we really want to move from in the business unit to a business unit led and a center of excellence, or in our case, IS supported model. So we want to have one person that they can answer questions. We did hire one person for this position, and his area of responsibilities are kind of in three different areas. One, he's the administrator for the Rockline Microsoft 365 Power BI environment. So he's responsible for looking some at those licensing, the capacity, the performance, setting up our corporate dashboards, and starting to create some of those change management documents. So if someone wants to make a change, how do we make the change and make sure everyone's aware of the change that's being made? Second is to administer the replication system. So how do we take those JD Edwards data, convert it over? How do we take some of these other systems that we want to take and pull them into the same data model? So he would be responsible for all of those repositories and migrating the data over and making sure that the model was being refreshed timely. And then the third part was kind of being, like I said, the center of excellence. He would be our source for the Power BI knowledge. He could guide the users if they had questions on either how to create spreadsheets or dashboards or create the DAX queries. Or for those people that did not have their super users, we have a couple of those in various departments. He could actually take those requests and build those Power BI dashboards for them and the reports for them. So we had an organizational change. We needed to add at least one person to the department, which we did last year. And then we also partnered with Preferred Strategies with their quick launch solution. So we were looking for something that could connect to the JD Edwards database and then take it and create something that we could actually use Power BI to look at that system. So here we see a lot of how we have JD Edwards, or here's really our architecture. We have our JD Edwards database, and we have our JD Edwards database. It's a DB2 on an iSeries going through Stello, which is our replication tool. So it's being replicated into Databricks in the Azure Delta Lake. And then we're using the quick launch data models, We have a production data set, and we also have a dev data set. So both the production and dev go through the production data in two different models. And that way users can actually start creating things in dev, see how they work out. Dev is only refreshed once a day, and our production data set is refreshed 4 times a day. We have a full build occurring at 1 a.m. and then we do incremental updates at 7, noon, and 3 p.m. So throughout the day, people can get the refreshed data on their data set. And from these data models, we can then have our Power BI using the data models to then create and display all the data that we want for the whole company. It was nice because Quick Launch has the out-of-the-box reports to give people the visibility of what they really wanted to see. Because like I said before, a lot of them were looking at those JD Edwards reports, the CSV formats, looking at the numbers. They weren't quite sure how to visualize some of the data. So by seeing some of the Quick Launch reports, they could say, hey, this is great. I want it to look like this. Or it's like, oh, we can do graphs, or we can do a chart of the whole USA and put like a heat map on where the sales are. It gave them the visibility and started them thinking about what they could actually do with this new tool. So with partnering with Preferred Strategies, we have a subscription. So we subscribe to all modules. This is a screenshot of our application that we have for production. The 2 modules that you don't see here is one, we just implemented the warehousing perspective, and that's currently in our dev environment. And we also did implement the supply and demand perspective, which is also in our dev environment right now. So we have all of these reports that give the users kind of the visibility. So going back to our users, since finance and sales were my primary responsibilities, I wanted them to get up and running the fastest with these tools. So our CFO and our corporate controller at that time really took an active role in validating all of the data that we had coming from JD Edwards through the replication into the data model and visibility for all of the reports. So the finance reports were some of the first ones that we've actually rolled out. And we really just rolled these out fairly recently. They could now start seeing the financial KPIs. And the one that they really had a hard time creating outside of JD Edwards before was a fixed charge coverage ratio. And this was something that Andrew was able to go in, being responsible for the Power BI environment and also our data model, and make some of these changes and work with the users on what they really want to see. So all of these reports do have drill down capabilities, so you can see each of the components that make up the values. And the other piece that we had was our validation. And the validation was really nice because that gave our financial people a quick one-stop shop where they could see all of those components that made up all of the KPIs for all of the different periods that they had. They could take this report and match it up with any of the JD Edwards reports and say, yep, all of these numbers are matching up. So we started building that validation and that trust in the system that yes, gross sales, you see it here. It's the same that you see in JD Edwards. And we can also see it in the Spreadsheet Server. So after rolling out some of just the GL for the finance group, we still need to roll out the AR and AP for the rest of the accounting group. The next piece was really looking at the sales side. So this is our business P&L, which the sales group really lives in. We have it by a lot of the customer information. So who's the sales director for it, the customer names, kind of grouping those pieces together. We have the item descriptions along with a lot of the item categories. We had our units of measure. So we could actually look at our actuals in both the primary unit of measure and a few other units of measure we had. We call them standard units and stacks and pallets, along with all of the different components based on those unit levels, based on, per case or per primary unit of measure. We then have all of those by extended. So taking that quantity times, like the price to get the extended price. So we had all of those categories. We also then at the end of the report had those same things with looking at our budget. So looking at the budget units and the components and the extended piece. And there's actually, I believe, 3 or 4 more columns that aren't shown here on the report. And this is the limit of how many columns you can get on a JD Edwards CSV report. So we don't have any more room to expand what they really want to see in this report. But how can we take this, since it's a lot of slicing and dicing that they want to do, and convert it into something that they can see in Power BI? So Andrew's been doing a lot of work with this because we have the different units of measure already within the model, but a lot of the other Rockline components or the company contribution components were really unique to Rockline. So Andrew had to do some work on trying to pull out some of the allowances, the rebates, the advertising from the price file. We had 12 different adjustment names in the price file. He also had to pull the payment terms, and he had to pull the cost file. He also had to pull the commission files because we have commissions based on a lot of these sales. We also have something that we call account profile, which is another Rockline customization, which combines the freight, warehouse handling, and warehouse transfers, along with extra costs, which is another Rockline customization. So how to take all of these custom JD Edwards tables, marry them together, put them into the model, or set them through Stella for the replication, pull them into the Databricks, put them into the notebooks, put together the combinations, and then display them. So Andrew did a lot of work in trying to make the sales report more what I say Rockline centric. The nice part is he did the final validation. We had a couple issues with currency codes, and they're now looking at doing the final validation to make sure everything is now lining up. We have, I think, just a minor issue or a minor duplication with some of the advanced pricing fields, being we have multiple active records for some of these advanced pricing. We are also kind of looking at, from the data model, how can we take that table that I talked about earlier with Derek? He had a CSV report. We created that into a JD Edwards table. Now let's pull that over. How do we pull that trailer schedule into the data model and combine it with some other information we had? And we're also looking at the project hours, the cost tracking. How do we pull that within the tables within JD Edwards and pull them into the quick launch data model? So it's a lot of customization that Andrew's doing, and he actually listed all the tables that he had. And as he's starting to move things from the dev, make sure they're right, making sure they're pulling correctly, and then moving it to production, and then making sure that the replication is turned on for all of these tables. So I have my one person, Andrew, who is working on all of our Power BI requests. And then I was asked to try to bring this all together and create a business intelligence roadmap. And as I look at it, it is like herding cats. We have a lot of things going on. We have all of those user-created dashboards that are using JD Edwards data, but they're outside of the system. How do we get them to retool and use the data model as their source of data for all of those pieces? We also are building on that quick launch data model. We pulled in the advanced pricing. We pulled in some of our custom tables. What other custom tables do we need to pull in? What are the users looking for? Are there different fields that weren't exposed that we need to expose? some of the MRP fields, how do we make those visible for everybody? And then also, how do we expand the model? We have the other data sources that we use, that how do we marry that up with the JD Edwards data? So we're expanding the model. We're currently looking at our Logility planning system and how to bring that database, connect it in, and marry it with the model. So then our users have one source of JD Edwards and planning data that they can then do their dashboards over. And Logility is just kind of the start of it. We want to look at our Agile. They're currently doing a new implementation during the Oracle Cloud PLM system. How do we bring that data in for item information that's not housed in JD Edwards? Our asset management system, some of that information isn't housed in JD Edwards. How do we bring that information in? We also use Uber Freight for our freight. They have some information. How do we bring that in? Our UKG system for HR. How do we bring all of this in? So we're looking at bringing in all of these other data sources to kind of expanding the model that people are seeing. So what's next with Quick Launch? Because I said we're just at the beginning of our journey. We're really looking at, we've implemented the supply and demand. We've done the brief show and tell with our Power BI share group, and they're currently looking at the supply and demand perspective on how can we reuse this data? How can we retool some of our existing things that we're using to use more of the model and the perspective? We're also looking at upgrading to some of the components that were just released in 5.3. We're looking at getting that AR aging summary, since we haven't given users access to the AR information at this time. How can we build that in now? And then when we roll it out, everyone can see our aging information. From the manufacturing side, we're really looking for that item cost and components and pulling that information in. And then we're also looking at the AI and data science. How do we look at the AI and ask questions and get the information from our data set, since all of our JD Edwards data will be in this platform? So we have both things within Quick Launch that we want to do and upgrade. And then we still have a lot of things with all of our users. We currently use Smartsheet to track all of our requests. So Andrew has a nice list of, it looks like 17 different requests that he's working on. Everything from helping people convert, how do I make my things into the database? How do I pull different fields in? How do I request training? I want to become a developer. And so he can actually look at this and we can prioritize this to say, okay, where do we want to go? What do we want to do? So all of this is really helping us kind of building the trust in the data, in the one-stop shop for the reporting. We're looking at creating a Rockline app. So if you saw on the dashboards, a lot of people had their own branding on each of the reports. Really, we want to try to create things under a Rockline app so they know that it's validated, that it has the same definitions, the same calculations within all of the systems. We want to make sure that everything's documented. The one nice part about the Quick Launch is it came with really great documentation on which tables it's pulling, which fields it's pulling, what the name of the column is. So we want to expand on that documentation so people understand what they're seeing with all of those different fields. As we roll things out, we do want to make sure that security is in place, and we have two different levels of security. We have Active Directory security, which we have Active Directory groups, which allows them to see certain perspectives. So inventory perspective, purchasing perspective, and seeing the information within those groupings. But we also do have JD Edwards security in place, where our controllers can only see their financial information for their companies. Our sales group can only see the sales information related to their areas. So our Walmart team can only see the Walmart data. Our retail group only sees the retail data. Our contract group can only see their data. So it's a combination of having access to it, but then also overlaying a lot of our JD Edwards security over the top of it. And by seeing all of this, it's really a good collaboration for all of the users because they can actually now see their impact. Oh, if I make this change, then it impacts these people, or these people also see it and they can ask questions. So we do get more of that cross-functional with the visibility and the talking between everybody. So at this time, I think we're kind of running short on time. I'd like to thank everyone for attending and joining us on this session. My contact information is here. And I'll turn it back over to David at this time.
Thank you, Cheryl. That was great. It was amazing to see the transformation that's been going on at Rockline and how far you guys have really been able to take that solution over the short time that you've had it. So thanks for walking us through that. There was one or two questions that came in that I wanted to get to. So you had mentioned that Rockline had a lot of different systems across departments to handle reporting. And somebody asked, how are y'all handling change management and keeping business users happy while cutting over to Power BI? Do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a large challenge for us right now, because all of the users are very busy, and they haven't prioritized migrating the data, migrating their Power BI dashboards to use the data model yet. Um, this year we will have a corporate initiative to say, hey, if it's coming out of JD Edwards using JD Edwards data, it really should be using our data model. So we now need to go through the execs, one, do an inventory of all of the dashboards that we have over there, and then start figuring out how we can best help the users with migrating things because they built it, it's working fine, they don't want to necessarily change it. So we kind of have to take the slow steps and see how we can help them to migrate some of the changes over.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Sort of a follow-up question to that. How are the users embracing data visualization over the classic like Excel data tables that they're used to? Has there been reluctancy there, or are people accepting it and enjoying it?
It's interesting because there's a combination that we see occurring. There's some people with some of the dashboards that it looks strictly like a Excel pivot table. You just see all of the numbers and there is no visualization where we look at it's like you can recreate this just within Excel. And other groups are really looking at the visualizations and seeing the trend lines and seeing the stacked bar graphs. So it kind of varies by group to group. And some of them are now looking at like the KPI cards and saying, okay, just give me that quick hit. And then they want to see the trending, which they couldn't get before. So some groups, it's a slow conversion just because they'd never had it before. So now we're kind of showing them the art of what's possible. And also by having the quick launch options, we can show them in other modules, excuse me, what other people can do or see. So like some of the geographic mapping, hey,
Mhm.
you might want to look at this way. And they weren't even looking at that concept. So it's nice to show them what's possible to start getting their minds changed. Say, it's not just a number. Let's look at the trending. What is the trending showing us? And it's a whole mentality shift that we're working through also.
Yeah, a great point. I think that comes back to having, or the importance of having a center of excellence, so that when people do come up with a cool way to tell a story with data visualizations, they're sharing that throughout the organization, and other people can leverage that too. So great answer. I guess just to wrap up here, the question I like to ask all of our customers is really what's been the biggest impacts to your company from implementing modern enterprise analytics so far on your journey?
The visibility and the communication within all of the different departments. Um, some of the areas like our sales directors, if they knew their product was on hold, they can now look at the database or the dashboards and say, okay, I see this, I understand it. I don't have to make that phone call and interrupt someone from their day to answer my question. So kind of giving them the self-sufficiency to know the answers they can still reach out to those people, but to make them more knowledgeable about their data and to build some of those cross-functional relationships on how people impact each other people. Getting the visualizations out there really started saying, hey, why are we at 10 days for this hold? Why are we at 15 days for this? Once you can start seeing it, you can then start measuring it, and then you can start holding people accountable. So seeing some of those numbers decrease really helped out.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl, for presenting with us today. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us on today's session. Keep an eye out for future events that we'll have, and hope everybody has a great rest of their week. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.